You ever feel like the universe has a particularly sick sense of humor? Like it sets you up for a quiet, suburban dream, only to pull the rug out from under you with something you never even knew existed. My wife Clara and I, Elias, moved into our new home the same month, the same week, the same street as the Holloways. We lived across from one another, in houses that were practically mirror images, twin structures standing sentinel on a quiet cul-de-sac. I didn't know much about them, beyond seeing them occasionally moving around their sprawling property. They were already a family, with two boys who looked like they were on the cusp of their teenage years, while Clara and I were still expecting our first. Their ornate mailbox, a heavy, wrought-iron affair, bore the name Holloway, etched in a swirling, almost ancient script. We'd thought, optimistically, that it would be nice to live in a neighborhood with other families, a place where our future child could grow up surrounded by other kids. To be honest, we didn't have much of a choice in the matter. My company transfer had been sudden, a jarring shift from the city to this quiet, almost sleepy town. It was either quit or move, and considering we couldn't afford to be out of work, especially with a baby on the way, Clara and I decided it would be best to follow along. Besides, we both had relatives not too far from the area, a comforting thought in a new, unfamiliar landscape. The move itself was relatively painless. We got Clara's work-from-home office set up in a matter of days, a cozy nook filled with sunlight and the scent of new wood. I barely even got a weekend to settle before I had to be in on the following Monday. Being a regional manager for a specialized packaging plant might not sound like much, but given the scale and intricate nature of the orders we were receiving at that time, I figured it would take at least 3 guys to replace me at the helm. All in all, we were busy, all of us, settling into our new routines, building the foundations of a new life. But at the end of that first month, the Holloways did something strange, something that cracked the veneer of suburban normalcy. They started their displays. At first, it was a subtle surprise. A single shimmering light, rising silently from their lawn, unfurling into a cascade of deep, almost indigo blues and purples. Clara, who has always had this peculiar fascination with anything that glows or refracts light, just dropped her jaw. She didn't cheer, not exactly, but there was a quiet reverence in her expression. "It's like a night-blooming flower," she'd whispered, her eyes wide. Those first few weeks, we got the sense that one way or another, things were just going to work out. We had a moment on our admittedly cramped patio, holding hands, watching the silent light show across the street, feeling a fragile peace settle over us. Then, life just went on as it should for a while. The orders at work slowed to a manageable pace, a relief after the initial rush. Clara kept her appointments with the obstetrician, her belly growing rounder by the day. Slowly the moving boxes were unpacked, their flattened forms banished to the garage. Little magnetic shapes like abstract art began to appear on the fridge. Paintings, carefully hung, somehow started to get crooked, leaning precariously. The hallway rug inched ever further towards the front door, as if making its own slow escape. Baby things, tiny clothes, soft blankets, and miniature stuffed animals began to litter the hallways, a joyful anticipation of our little Lily's arrival. After about a month at the new house, I remember having a late dinner with Clara. I'd had a long day, an unexpected surge of specialized orders leading to a bit of unpaid overtime, and she'd been kind enough to keep my meal warm. As we sat down to eat, there was a sudden, jarring flicker of light outside, followed by a profound, almost draining silence. We realized that once again, the Holloways were putting on their spectral display. It was a single, immense shaft of light, a pillar of pure, unnerving violet that seemed to suck the color out of the night around it, leaving behind a faint, metallic tang in the air. The whole neighborhood seemed to dim in its presence. Apparently this was a monthly thing. We exchanged a look. This might be a problem. Our baby girl, Lily, was born on September 29th. Clara was a goddamn superhero through it all, a warrior of calm and resilience. I was there for every moment, even though Clara, ever pragmatic, insisted she was fine, even going so far as to suggest I put in an extra shift to keep myself busy. Of course, I didn't, but that gives you an idea of just how self-possessed and quietly formidable this blessing of a woman truly is. We brought Lily home and settled into a new routine, or rather, a new lack of routine, a chaotic ballet of feedings, diaper changes, and brief, precious moments of sleep. Parents to a newborn are rarely the most cheerful of people, and I can't pretend it was all sunshine and roses, but we managed pretty well, all things considered. While a shock at first, our new life came creeping up on us in a way we never could have prepared for, demanding every ounce of our energy and attention. But through it all, Lily was the sweetest thing, probably the least fussy baby I've ever met, all wide eyes and soft coos. The only thing she truly didn't like was loud noises, which we realized one morning when a sleep-deprived Clara accidentally dropped a box of cutlery across the kitchen floor. It took us a solid half-hour just to calm the little girl down, her small body trembling with a distress that felt almost disproportionate. Then there were the Holloways. The damn Holloways. It was like they were just waiting for us to need peace and quiet before they showed their true colors, before their strange displays became something more sinister. It started on an ordinary Saturday, around 1 in the morning. I woke from the sudden, profound dimming of the room, a strange visual pressure before I even registered the sound of it. This massive, silent column of purple light was popping off right above our house, bathing the entire street in an eerie, anemic glow. It was accompanied by a low, almost subsonic thrum that vibrated through the floorboards, rattling the windows and sending Lily into a panicked, high-pitched cry. I sat with her most of that night, rocking her, whispering everything was going to be okay, while Clara desperately tried to catch a few hours of half-sleep. Lily was terrified, and she was vocal about letting me know, her tiny hands clutching my shirt. I remember sitting by the kitchen window, bottle-feeding her, staring daggers at the Holloway residence across the street. I could see Silas Holloway, the father of the family, out on his lawn, looking up at the dissipating light as if considering if he ought to launch another. Thankfully, he didn't. Not that night, at least. The light displays kept going off in the middle of the night, about once every 3 days after that. I tried going over to talk to them, to reason with them, but none of them seemed to be around during the day, not even the kids. I remember waiting by their front door for their car to pull up the driveway, ready to confront them, but I seemed to have chronically bad timing. Then one night, they blasted off again, this time with a pulsing, sickly green light that seemed to drain the energy from the air itself. Clara was handling Lily, who was already inconsolable, and I went straight for the door. I was out in a t-shirt and my boxers, slipping on a pair of sneakers halfway out the door. That was the first time I got a good, close look at Silas Holloway, the head of the family. The man was in his mid-50s, about 6'5", and had a shiny, bald head that caught the strange, pulsating green light. His eyes were sunken and tired, deep pools of shadow in a gaunt face, and he had this kind of slouching, almost defeated posture, like an old dog that had seen too many hard winters. There was a sort of sickly pallor to his skin, a waxy, almost translucent quality that made him look like old ham left out too long. I didn't care, though. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled, my voice rough with sleep deprivation and rage. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He just looked at me, a blank stare, like he didn't understand what kind of language I was speaking. When I pointed at him, he visibly recoiled, a sudden, jerky movement. "Don't you dare walk away," I demanded, stepping closer. "Not one more damn time or I'm calling the police." He gave me this look, like a frightened animal caught in a snare, and as I stepped closer, he burst into a frantic sprint, heading straight for his front door. Before I even got halfway across the street, I could hear bolts and chains being dragged across the inside of his front door, a cacophony of metallic clangs. I got up to it and pounded, my fists aching. I screamed at him, demanding an answer, a reason, and yet nothing. Not a word, not a sound. I'd cooled off a little in the morning, the raw edge of my anger dulled by exhaustion, but Clara hadn't. She called not only the police but the HOA. I urged her on, clinging to the hope that some official body could intervene, but we soon realized it was an exercise in futility. Not only was there no specific rule about light displays in the local bylaws, but it was a point of pride, almost an obsession, how open the neighborhood rule set was. If anything, we suspected that this might have been the very reason the Holloways moved there in the first place, seeking a place where their peculiar habits wouldn't be questioned. Hell, even the police gave us the cold shoulder, saying it wouldn't be worth their time to come knocking when there was nothing to enforce. It started to make sense how we got that place so cheap. It wasn't really meant for typical families, it seemed. We'd just been tricked by seeing what we thought was another normal family across the street. We tried to confront the Holloways a couple more times. Clara tried once, only to see their young boys scurry back inside the house like startled mice. I tried to knock on the door again, but didn't get any kind of response. It was like they were scared of us, but not like a normal kind of scared. An almost animal-like kind of fear, raw and instinctual. How these people could drive a car, hold down jobs if they did, and function in society was a mystery. But the light displays continued. A few days might pass, offering a false sense of peace, but they always came back, always silent, always accompanied by that strange, draining sense of dimness. Lily did not want to get used to it, and I couldn't blame her. Not only was it startling, but it felt sinister, like there was a genuine ill will behind it, something meant to harm. I always got the sense that there was a reverence to it from the Holloways, a deep, unsettling ritualistic quality. I could see them sometimes, bending down on one knee, gently placing the source of the light, whatever it was, like a Tibetan monk lighting incense, but with a horrifying, inverted purpose. There was a ceremony to it. I got a better look at the rest of the Holloway family, too. Elara Holloway, the mother, didn't seem a day over 30, but she looked like she'd never cut her hair once in her life. It was so long it almost dragged across the ground, tapping against her heels as she walked, a dark, lifeless curtain. She had the same kind of sickly pallor as her husband, and the same sunken, perpetually tired eyes. I never saw her blink, not even once. Their kids could have been twins if not for one being slightly taller than the other. Same gaunt physique, same sickly pallor, and the same drooping, expressionless faces as their father. The closest description I can manage is that they were, in a sense, ghoulish about a week past, and the light displays just seemed to grow more intense, more frequent and more draining. I remember getting Lily her bottle in the kitchen when I noticed Clara sneaking by the window, looking at something across the street. I checked it out, spotting Elara out and about in their front garden. Clara just shook her head, whispering, "Who the hell starts planting things mid-October?" The Holloways, it seems, I sighed, already knowing the answer. "Probably getting their kid a new set of drums too, right?" I mumbled, a sarcastic edge to my voice. Clara shot me a glare. "You shut that cursed mouth, Elias, they might hear you." But of course, they didn't. If anything, Elara wouldn't have noticed the entire world collapsing around her. If anything, she seemed to be perfectly at peace, her hands deep in the soil, picking out rocks and roots and planting something deep below. Then it stopped. Several days passed, and there were no light displays. We thought it was finally over, that maybe our constant complaints had worked, or that they had just run out of whatever strange material they were using. But apparently, they'd just gotten started. I remember the turning point. I was up with Lily, rocking her, when I saw the whole Holloway clan sneak out of their front door. They all stopped to look at their little garden, a strange, silent tableau. Then one by one, they started to emit this weird howling noise, not a human sound but a guttural screech, like the mix of a wounded pig and a panting dog, stretched thin and distorted. All of them in unison cackling, their gaunt faces contorted into something resembling joy. Lily didn't even cry. She just looked out the window, her small face as confused as I was. I saw Silas pulling up handfuls of grass from his front yard, throwing it in the air in celebration. The boys were dancing around their car, hand in hand, a macabre jig. Ilara was just on her knees, openly weeping, a silent, unsettling release of emotion. I thought about filming it, about gathering some kind of undeniable evidence, but Lily had fallen back asleep in my arms, and I didn't want to risk waking her. It was such a bizarre sight, and I couldn't even see what the fuss was about. The next morning, as they scurried back inside their house, Clara and I went out to see what they had been cheering about. Looking at their front garden, there was no obvious change, no giant garden gnomes or neon signs. All I saw were some kind of sprouting seeds. They had these large, oval-shaped leaves, with just a hint of an unnatural, glowing blue to them. Clara stepped right up onto their yard and took a closer look. I didn't have the time to protest, as I was carrying Lily, who had decided that my beard was her new favorite plaything. "Looks like nightshade," Clara said, her voice thoughtful. "My mom grew these once, though never this shade of blue." Nightshade. Yeah, Clara nodded, pretty sure there was nothing more to it. A bunch of pale, sickly-looking nightshade plants, and that was all it took to send this family into a frenzy. It started to dawn on us that there was something deeply, profoundly wrong here. Maybe even dangerous. Clara gave the authorities another shot the next day. She tried calling Child Protective Services, desperate to get someone to check in on the boys, but she couldn't make a good enough argument. They were already registered as homeschooled, and there was nothing inherently wrong with cheering in the front yard or emitting silent light displays. Clara almost cried of frustration, having been bounced between one number to the next for over 40 minutes, only to be told there was nothing to do. At that point, we had no idea what to do. We were genuinely worried about the Holloways, or more accurately, what they were becoming, and it seemed like no one shared that feeling. I talked to a few people at work about it, trying to gauge their reactions, but none of them had anything to say, and why would they? They'd never even seen the Holloways, let alone lived across the street from them. But the most telling cue was Lily. She had gone from quiet and cuddly to fearful and anxious seemingly overnight. It got to the point where we had to go to the doctor to make sure it wasn't something physically wrong, but of course, there wasn't. It was only a matter of regular rest and food, it seemed, which wasn't as simple as it sounded. Thanks to the Holloways for the next few nights, we were anxious. The Holloways had been eerily quiet, and that couldn't be a good thing. It was now sort of understood that whoever was up with Lily had a responsibility to check the front yard every now and then, to see if there was something we could finally pin on the Holloways to have them investigated. It was petty, sure, but these people had become a menace, a source of constant, gnawing dread. We couldn't have Lily suffer because those bastards refused to act like people. It all came down to this one night in early November. I was sitting up with Lily, watching their front yard from the kitchen window, when I spotted Silas and the oldest kid stockpiling something in the yard. It looked like dark, irregularly shaped boxes, but I couldn't tell what they contained. They filled a big space in the yard with them, approximately 8 by 8 feet, spacing the boxes out evenly. They were at it for a long time, moving with an unnatural, fluid grace that belied their gaunt forms. Then Silas stepped up to their living room window. He slapped his hand across the surface, slowly rubbing it back and forth, almost caressing it. Seconds later, his wife and youngest son joined him outside. It was so uncanny, like even their movements were strange, imbued with some kind of silent energy. I brought out my phone and started recording, just in case they were doing something to the boxes. But I couldn't tell what. Even with the zoom, after a while they all stepped back, all but Silas, who held up a lighter, a small, mundane object in his pale hand. Only then did I realize they were setting up the biggest batch of whatever those light-generating things were I'd seen. By the time I got to Clara, they'd already lit the fuse. Given how intensely draining their displays had been on earlier nights, this was going to be on a whole other level. I set Lily down and covered her ears as I yelled at Clara to do the same. She was barely awake, but did as I asked without question, her face pale with dread. I tried to hunch my shoulders over my ears, but I couldn't quite make it. Lily was already crying, a tiny, desperate wail, sensing the tension in the air moments later. There was this barrage of silent thumps as rocket after rocket leapt into the sky, at least 24. They sailed up, a black streak against the night, but nothing happened. For a brief moment, I almost thought my prayers had been answered, that it was a dud. Then the sky exploded. Not with light, not with sound, but with an incredible, blinding absence of light. It was as if a cosmic vacuum cleaner had activated, sucking every photon from the air. For a moment, night turned to day, but a day drained of color, a monochrome nightmare. I could see every inch of the bedroom, every contour of my wife and child, the pile of used clothes in the corner, the diapers at the changing station, all rendered in sickly shades of gray. Then came the sound. It was so loud that I felt it before I heard it. A crushing pressure against my eardrums, a deep, resonating hum that vibrated through my bones. The windows rattled and I saw a painting fall. By the time it hit the floor, there was a sound so deafening, a high-pitched, piercing shriek that bypassed my ears entirely and lodged directly in my head, that I didn't hear the frame shatter. It immediately made my head ring, a constant, unbearable whine. I could see Clara screaming something, her mouth wide open, but I couldn't hear her. I had this screeching noise piercing all the way from my ear to my throat, a physical agony. Lily was okay, albeit a bit upset about the whole thing, but she was fine. I'd covered her in time. Clara put 2 fingers up to her ear and mouth, as if signaling she was going to call someone. Then she picked up Lily, holding her tight. I was dizzy, trying my best just to stand straight. Without that inner ear balance, your head feels like it's on a swivel. I lost my footing 3 times just heading towards the hallway. All I could hear was this incessant screeching coming from the back of my head, like there were 2 frayed cables in my mind rubbing against one another, sending sparks down my spine. It was still unnaturally bright outside, a stark, bleached light where I could see vague, almost translucent shapes of the Holloways dancing in their front yard. There was a fresh, spiderweb crack in our bedroom window, casting a strange shadow on my face. Trickles of water had started to silently tap against the pavement outside, forming puddles in the potholes, but the rain was an odd, almost shimmering silver. As I got to the hallway, I could feel myself calling out to Clara, my chest rumbling with the effort, but I couldn't hear it. It was just this deep rumble in my chest, a vibration. I became hyper-aware of my own breathing and pulse, the only noises able to reach my head, amplified and sickeningly clear. It dawned on me that this could, in fact, be permanent. My hearing might be gone forever. I was surprised to see Clara holding up a finger against her lips, as if asking me to be silent. Then she pointed at the door. There was someone outside, a dark shadow against the sudden alien backdrop of the downpour. For a moment, we just stood there, frozen. Clara held Lily tight to her chest, looking back and forth between me and the door, her eyes wide with terror. I turned my head towards the kitchen, my eyes landing on the knife block, its steel gleaming in the strange light. Clara was nodding at me silently, her lips forming the word knife, asking me to be prepared. There was no telling what these people were capable of, and we wouldn't want to risk it. I couldn't hear a damn thing, but Clara could. Call for help, I silently pleaded with her. I saw her yelling something, her mouth contorted, as the door shook, a threatening rattle. I felt the vibrations of sound bounce against the side of my head. Unable to reach through the thicket of noise and pressure in my ear, I hurried into the kitchen and grabbed a knife, its cold handle a solid anchor in my trembling hand. My mind raced. He might be saying he had a weapon or that he was going to hurt us. There was no way to know. The rain was coming down hard, a silent, silvery curtain, obfuscating the silhouette outside, but as the door shook again, a loud, splintering groan, I could tell that whatever was happening was violent, desperate. I placed myself between Clara and the front door, urging her to back away. She hurried into the bathroom, clutching Lily, holding up her phone to me, a desperate plea in her eyes. I nodded. She stopped at the bathroom door, waving at me to follow. I intended to, then the front door came down. Not burst, not broken. It collapsed, crumbling inward like old parchment, dissolving into dust and splintered wood. Silas Holloway pushed his way through the crumbling door frame, a gaunt specter, reaching for me. His sickly features were lit up in a smile wide and unnervingly ecstatic, revealing more teeth than I thought a human should have. My first instinct was to look back at Clara to make sure she'd locked herself in. She did, reluctantly, her eyes pleading with me. Then it was just me and the lanky man. He had no weapons, just these arms that seemed to go on forever, his long, skeletal fingers reaching, grasping. He was so much taller and had so much longer reach than I'd anticipated. Not only was my hearing throwing me off, but there was just something inherently wrong with him, a subtle shift in his proportions, a lack of shadow that suggested he wasn't quite solid. His left hand grabbed me by the biceps, pulling me towards him with impossible strength. There was this thick, sticky coat of something warm and sickeningly sweet in the palm of his hand, searing my arm like a kind of adhesive, binding me to him. I tried slicing him, my knife a blur against his arm, but it was like trying to cut rubber, the blade simply sliding off his skin without effect. He dragged me out into the rain, ecstatic, his face contorted in a silent, joyful laugh. I kept trying to stab at him, my movements clumsy with dizziness and panic, but I lost my footing, slipping on the wet pavement. He didn't skip a beat. He just kept dragging me backwards effortlessly into the middle of the street. I looked around, desperate, trying to scream for help. I could feel the air leaving my lungs, my chest heaving, but nothing happened, no sound escaping my throat. The other Holloways were standing in their driveway, looking up into the rain, their faces similarly contorted in silent, grotesque jubilation. Behind them, I could see that the nightshade plants had already sprouted, growing at an impossible rate, turning a sickly shade of blue, their leaves unfurling into large, luminous blooms that pulsed with a faint, malevolent light. Silas looked down on me, his mouth moving, saying something. He nodded, his head bobbing frantically. I shook my head, unable to understand, and he nodded again, more intensely this time, his grip tightening. He was telling me something, he was going to do something. Something was going to happen, and looking at the way his hand had fused to my skin, a viscous, burning bond, I didn't know what to think. It was just this freezing panic settling into my spine, a cold dread that numbed everything but the burning pain on my arm. Only then did I realize it was still unnaturally bright outside. The alien light had long since stopped, but the night remained illuminated by something else. It is hard to explain the sensation that followed. I looked up and felt this immediate, profound drain, like going from well-rested to sleep-deprived in the span of a breath, an exhaustion that settled deep in my bones. There was this swirling light above us, something intensely red, something that had seen the Holloways and answered their call, something that wanted to get a better look at us. It was like an eye in the sky, a vast crimson orb that pulsed with an unseen power. It was so fast. The rain, which had been a silent downpour, turned into an opposite, an uppour sucking whatever had been dropped, whatever essence, back up towards the hungry light. I could see the other Holloways rise from the ground, just a few feet at first, their forms becoming more translucent, more ethereal, then all the way up the side of the house and into the bright contrast of the mysterious light above. It was this painless, effortless glide, like a feather caught on a river, carried upwards into the sky. First, I thought Silas was growing taller, becoming a giant, until I realized what was happening. He was going away too, and he was bringing me with him. In a heartbeat, I was 3 feet into the air, dangling by his hand, the burning bond holding me fast. He wasn't letting go. No amount of cutting or stabbing would make him stop. Soon my feet dangled uselessly in the air, my toes no longer reaching the ground as I looked up at the ecstatic, grotesque grin of Silas Holloway, unblinking, relentless, overjoyed. There was only one option left. As I shoved the kitchen knife into my own skin, cutting myself loose from his grasp, the pain a searing counterpoint to the terrifying ascent, I collapsed onto the ground, spraining my ankle in the process. The rain, still getting sucked back up, leaving shimmering trails on the pavement, trickled over my body, bringing along swaths of my blood that danced its way up my face, drawn into the upward current looking up. I caught one final glimpse of Silas Holloway, his hand outstretched, his face suddenly devastated by what can only be described as guilt or perhaps profound disappointment. He waved his fingers at me, urging me to reach for him, to rejoin him. It's like he didn't understand why I was fighting him, why I had severed our connection, why I hadn't embraced the ascent, like he was doing me a favor, saving me. But as his face disappeared further and further away, shrinking into the pulsating red orb, and the ground went dry, the last of the strange rain siphoned away, I was left on the pavement with a bleeding arm, the wound still burning. Thank God Clara had already called the police. That night left me with a nasty case of tinnitus, a constant, high-pitched whine that never truly goes away, and a hand-shaped scar on my bicep, a dark, raised mark where his touch had fused. But considering what could have happened, what did happen to the Holloways, I consider myself lucky. Lily has just started middle school, and no one has seen the Holloways since that night. Their house was bought up by some kind of industrial machining company to use the land, they said. We were bought out too, a generous offer we couldn't refuse, and moved after just a year of living there. None of us really minded. We'd gotten so paranoid, so constantly on edge, that getting away was a blessing, even though we lost a fair amount of money on the deal. Sometimes, late at night, especially when it rains, I look up at the clouds. I can almost feel that grin looking back at me, that malevolent presence, that red eye in the sky, still dreaming across the night sky, waiting for something bright enough, something pure enough to guide its path, to take more of what it hungers for. And sometimes in the distance I still see it, a faint, almost imperceptible flicker of deep, unnatural red, a silent promise in the vast, uncaring darkness. We're all packed and ready to go. The car is loaded with suitcases, snacks, and everything else we need for the road trip. My kids, Leo and Maya, are buckled up in the back seat, their faces lit by the soft glow of their tablets, lost in their digital worlds. My wife, Sophia, is beside me in the passenger seat, going over the route one last time before we head out. I'm Marcus, and we're driving to Sophia's parents' house for the holidays, a place filled with warm memories and a much-needed break from our hectic lives. It's a long drive, about 10 hours, but we're all looking forward to it. I start the car and merge onto the highway. Traffic is light, at least for now, but Sophia and I both know that it won't last. This interstate is notorious for bumper-to-bumper traffic, especially during holiday seasons. We've been stuck in jams that lasted for hours in the past. Neither of us wants to experience that again, especially not with two restless kids in the back. Remember last year? We were stuck for 3 hours because of that accident ahead, Sophia says, shaking her head, a grimace on her face. We missed Mom's dinner, and she was so disappointed. Yeah, I don't want a repeat of that, I reply, steering the car around a slow-moving truck. Sophia smirks and then starts scrolling through her phone. I'm looking at the traffic update. It seems like there's already a delay on our usual route. Want to try something different this time? I weigh the options. On one hand, the usual route is familiar. We know all the rest stops and gas stations along the way. On the other hand, the thought of getting stuck in traffic for hours with two kids who have the patience of fruit flies doesn't appeal to me in the slightest. Sure, let's take a detour, I say, a spark of adventure igniting within me. We could explore some new scenery and hopefully it'll be smoother sailing. Sophia opens the glove compartment and takes out an old map, one that's been in her family for years. It's more of a keepsake than anything, yellowed and creased, but it does show some alternative routes. She traces a line through a mountain range that will eventually lead us back onto the main road. How about this one? It might be longer in terms of distance, but it could save us time if the interstate is jammed. I nod, excited but slightly apprehensive about the unknown route. Let's do it. A little adventure could be fun. I hold the steering wheel tightly as our car winds through the narrow, twisting roads of the mountain range. I can't help but feel a sense of relief. We've successfully avoided the notorious traffic jams that plague the interstate during holiday seasons like this one. In the rearview mirror, I catch glimpses of our kids, Leo and Maya. They're busy in the back seat, their eyes darting around as they engage in a game of I Spy. It's a simple game, but it's effective in keeping them occupied. I break the silence, eyeing the empty road ahead and behind us. Are you sure about this route, Sophia? The absence of other vehicles has me feeling uneasy. She looks up from the map, locks eyes with me, and then glances at the road. Yeah, it's a shortcut according to this. We should be fine. However, just as she speaks those words, I sense something is off. The car starts to sputter, a jarring cough that echoes in the otherwise quiet interior. My grip tightens on the steering wheel. You've got to be kidding me, I say, almost in disbelief. I turn the key in an attempt to restart the engine, but it's futile. The car is lifeless, only offering a series of pitiful groans and clicks in response. We're stranded here, in the middle of nowhere. I look at the dashboard, where the fuel gauge indicates there's still gas, and the temperature gauge doesn't show overheating. It's baffling. The car's radio display shows no bars for cell service, amplifying the feeling of isolation. Sophia starts searching the glove compartment for the car manual or any tool that might be useful. What do we do now? She asks, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. I put the car in park and unbuckle my seat belt. I'm going to check under the hood. Maybe it's something simple that we can fix. Leo and Maya, having caught on that something is wrong, pause their game and look concerned. Are we stuck, Dad? Leo asks, his voice small. Yeah, why did the car stop? Maya adds, her brow furrowed. I open the car door and step out, trying to project a sense of calm. Don't worry, kids, we'll figure this out. Just a minor hiccup. I make my way to the front of the vehicle and lift the hood. Various parts of the engine are visible, but nothing stands out as obviously wrong. My eyes scan the array of components, hoping to spot something as simple as a loose wire or a disconnected hose. Sophia exits the car and stands next to me. Behind us, the back doors of the car open and close with soft thuds. Leo and Maya come around to join us, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. The game they were playing is now a secondary thought, replaced by the immediate problem at hand. As we're all gathered around the open hood, contemplating our next move, a sound pierces the silence. It's faint, but distinct. Someone is crying for help. Leo turns toward the direction of the sound, his eyes widening. Did you hear that? He asks, the words tumbling out quickly. Maya, standing next to Leo, tilts her head to listen more closely. It sounded like someone yelling for help, she adds, her voice tinged with seriousness. A moment of hesitation fills the air. We're already in a difficult situation, and adding another layer of complexity is not what any of us had in mind. However, the ethical dilemma is clear. We have to check it out, I finally say, looking at each of their faces. What if someone is in trouble? What if they're stranded like us? Sophia nods, her eyes meeting mine. She understands the gravity of the situation. All right, she says, but let's be cautious. We don't know what's going on, and we're not exactly in a position of strength ourselves. I close the car's hood. The engine problem remains unsolved, but a more immediate issue has arisen. Let's lock up the car and stick together, I instruct as I pull the car keys from my pocket and press the lock button. We all take a collective breath, steadying ourselves for what comes next. The cries for help continue, growing neither louder nor softer, as if waiting for us to make our move. We begin walking toward the source of the sound, our feet crunching on the mixture of gravel and leaves that make up the forest floor. I lead the way, with Sophia following closely behind me. Leo and Maya are in the rear, their young eyes scanning the surroundings. The dense forest is imposing, with towering trees that block out much of the sky, creating an almost perpetual twilight. Navigating through the forest is challenging. Roots snake across the ground, and the uneven terrain requires us to watch our steps carefully. I'm conscious of the fact that we're leaving our immobile car further behind with every step, but the calls for help continue to drive us forward, a strange, desperate lure. My ears stay tuned to the sound, trying to gauge its direction as we make our way through the wilderness. After about 15 minutes of walking, we reach a clearing. There's a sudden drop in the land before us, forming a steep hill that descends into a valley. I glance back at Sophia, Leo, and Maya. They look tired but committed. The sound seems to be coming from down there, I say, pointing to the valley. We carefully make our way down the hill, using the trees and their roots as makeshift handholds to stabilize ourselves. When we reach the bottom of the valley, the cries for help are definitely louder, almost as if they're beckoning us to continue. We are now in a denser part of the forest, where the trees are closer together, making it a bit darker despite it still being daytime. We press on, driven by a mix of concern and adrenaline. My heart pounds a little faster each time the cries repeat, urging us to hurry. Finally, the forest starts to open up again, and we see the mouth of a cave in the distance. Just outside the cave is a campsite, complete with a tent, a fire pit, and some scattered belongings. There are no people in sight. I exchange a puzzled look with Sophia, both of us immediately sensing that something is off. I approach the campsite cautiously, my eyes searching for any signs of life or recent activity. The tent flap is open, revealing an empty interior. A backpack lies on its side near the fire pit, its contents partially spilled out. It appears abandoned, as if someone left in a hurry. Leo, who has been quiet for most of the walk, finally speaks up. "This is weird. Where is everyone?" His voice is shaky, a clear indicator that he too feels the strangeness of the situation. Maya chimes in, her gaze locked onto the dark cave entrance from which no sound emerges. "Do you think the cries for help came from in there?" She points to the cave, and we all turn to look. The entrance is dark, almost like a void, making it impossible to see what lies within. The cries for help, which led us all the way here, have now stopped. Something's not right. "I don't like this," Sophia whispers to me, her voice tinged with genuine concern. Her eyes scan the abandoned campsite and the dark cave entrance, as if expecting something to leap out at any moment. The air is heavy, almost oppressive, making her words feel even more urgent. Before we have the chance to search more, a creature steps out from the cave's dark mouth. Its body is primarily covered in scales, each about the size of a coin, with a greenish-gray hue that shimmers faintly. These scales overlap tightly, giving the appearance of a tough, durable armor. Among the scales are patches of coarse, dark brown fur that seem oddly out of place, almost like matted moss, but equally menacing. Its eyes are the most striking feature, a deep, penetrating yellow with vertical slit pupils that seem to focus with unnerving precision. These eyes are set into a head that combines elements of both a reptile and a mammal, complete with a snout that looks almost canine, but too elongated, too narrow. Sharp, jagged teeth are visible when it opens its mouth, black and glistening. The creature's limbs are stout but look incredibly strong, ending in clawed hands and feet that have both the unnatural dexterity of a primate and the lethal sharpness of a bird of prey. Its tail is long and tapering, covered in the same greenish-gray scales that cover its body. The tail moves in a slow, hypnotic manner, as if it has a life of its own, independent of the main body. Then, when it opens its mouth, out come the cries for help we've been following, perfectly mimicked in a human voice that sends shivers down my spine, but subtly off-key like a broken echo. "Run!" The word bursts from my mouth, almost involuntarily, choked with pure primal fear. Without a second thought, we all spin around and bolt back in the direction we came from, our feet pounding against the forest floor. Adrenaline surges through my body, a cold, electric current. "What was that thing?" Leo manages to gasp out between labored breaths as we run through the thick underbrush. "I don't know," Maya shouts back, her voice strained. As we dash through the forest, the unsettling sound of footsteps begins to reach our ears. The creature is pursuing us, and by the sound of it, gaining ground. Each step it takes seems to resonate with a terrifying clarity, cutting through the natural sounds of the forest and amplifying our fear. But then, almost as suddenly as it started, the sound of the creature's footsteps stops. The absence of noise is almost as terrifying as its presence had been. Nevertheless, we don't risk a backward glance, not even for a second. Our singular focus is on putting as much distance between us and that thing as possible. Finally, we burst out of the forest and back onto the gravel road where our car is parked. Our faces are flushed, our breaths coming in ragged gasps, but relief washes over us. We've made it back, but the car is still immobile and the creature is still out there. "We can't stay here," Sophia says, her eyes filled with a sense of urgency, scanning the tree line. She quickly unlocks the car and motions for Leo and Maya to get inside. That thing might come for us, and we can't take any chances. "But the car won't start," I remind her, my eyes shifting between the useless ignition and the dense forest from which we just escaped. "And we don't have any cell signal out here. We're cut off." "We have to do something," she insists, her voice tinged with a mix of fear and desperate determination. "We're sitting ducks out here, and I don't want to think about what that creature could do if it finds us." I look at the car, its hood still popped open in a futile display of mechanical hope. Then back at my family, who are now inside the vehicle, their faces flushed, eyes wide with a mixture of relief and lingering fear. "Okay, let's go through our options," I start, taking a deep breath to steady myself. We heard that thing mimic human voices, so it lured us to it. We can't fall for that trick again. It's smarter than we initially thought. I grabbed the folded map from the glove compartment and spread it out on the hood of the car. There's got to be a nearby landmark or something where we can wait it out. A place that's easier to defend, or more public where someone might pass by. Sophia joins me, scrutinizing the map with a renewed focus. "Yes, maybe a ranger station, or even a main road that's closer than going back through that forest," she suggests, her finger tracing a thin line. "Exactly," I agree, my finger tracing possible routes on the map. "Our main goal is to put distance between us and that creature, but also to find a spot where we have the advantage, or at least where we're not as exposed." "There's a cabin not too far from here, maybe a mile or so," she says, pointing to a small square symbol on the map. "We could make it if we stick together, and it's in the opposite direction from where we encountered that creature." So we walk to the cabin, barricade ourselves in, and wait until morning, I ask, looking from the map to the darkening sky. "It's our best shot," she replies firmly. I glance at the sky again. It's clear that nightfall is approaching, and with it, increased danger. "All right, we stick together and we don't respond to any voices we hear, no matter how human they sound," I say firmly, looking at each of their faces. I lock up the car one more time, securing it as best as I can, despite knowing it's far from foolproof. We each grab whatever can be used as an impromptu weapon. I take a tire iron from the trunk, its weight a comforting heft in my hand. Sophia picks up a hefty flashlight, its beam surprisingly powerful. Leo and Maya arm themselves with large sticks from the ground, their small hands gripping them tightly. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Turning to face the forest, we start our trek in the direction Sophia identified as leading to the cabin. The air around us is thick with tension, each snap of a twig causing us to jump, each rustle in the bushes making our hearts pound. All the while in the back of our minds is the chilling awareness that the creature is still out there somewhere, in the dark, watching us and perhaps plotting its next move. As we move through the forest, the ground is uneven, covered with leaves and broken branches. The sky is a dark blanket above us, providing no light, only the faint, distant gleam of stars. I hold the tire iron tightly, its cold metal offering a small, fragile sense of security. "Keep close," I tell my family, keeping my voice low, almost a whisper. Our eyes scan the darkness in all directions, ears straining to catch any sound that isn't a part of the forest's natural soundtrack. Since we left our car, the woods have been quiet, eerily so. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Leo tense up. "I see it," he whispers, his finger pointing to where the forest is darkest. Following his direction, my eyes lock onto the creature. It's there, almost blending into the shadows, its yellow eyes glowing in a way that chills me to the core, reflecting the scant light. It stays still, watching us, a silent, predatory specter but not advancing. Why isn't it attacking? Maya's voice is shaky as she grips her stick, knuckles turning white. I don't know, Sophia says, her voice equally tense. Her eyes are locked on where the creature stands, a dark shape against the even darker trees. Don't let your guard down. It's toying with us. With a shared glance, we increase our pace, moving as quickly as the rough terrain allows. But even as we distance ourselves, there's a feeling of being watched, an invisible tether that connects us to the silent hunter. The forest itself seems to be closing in on us. Each rustle in the bushes raises the hairs on the back of my neck, and each snap of a twig underfoot sounds like a gunshot in the quiet. Finally, the shape of the cabin comes into view through the trees. The cabin is small and clearly has seen better days. The wood siding is weathered, a deep, faded gray, and moss clings to parts of the roof. As we get closer, I notice that the windows are coated with a thick layer of grime, almost opaque. With a cautious push, the front door creaks open on rusty hinges, revealing a dark, musty interior. We waste no time entering and immediately set to work barricading the door. An old, heavy wood table is propped against it, and chairs are stacked on top for added stability. Sophia looks around, taking stock of our surroundings. "Let's check for supplies," she says, her eyes scanning the dimly lit space. "We need to know what resources are available to us." The cabin is divided into a few small rooms. I head toward what appears to be a kitchen area. I open cupboards and find a modest stash of canned food and bottled water. The labels are faded, but it's better than nothing. Leo is already rifling through a drawer, and he pulls out a surprisingly well-stocked first aid kit. Maya, meanwhile, has found a closet filled with blankets and some surprisingly clean winter clothing. She drags a couple of blankets out, spreading them on the floor. It's not a bed, but it's better than the cold, damp ground outside. Then I find a radio tucked behind some books on a shelf, covered in dust and cobwebs. "Maybe we can call for help," I say, a glimmer of hope in my voice. I take the radio off the shelf and set it on a nearby table. With careful fingers, I turn the knobs, trying to find the emergency frequency. "Hello, can anyone hear me?" I speak into the radio transmitter. The machine crackles back at me, spitting out bursts of static. For a moment, a voice breaks through, but it's muffled and distorted, making it impossible to understand. "Damn it, it's not working properly," I mutter, my fingers tightening around the device in frustration. Then we hear it. A sound that chills us to the core. It's the creature's call, but this time, it's not just mimicking any cry for help. It's mimicking my voice. The words, "Hello, can anyone hear me?" echo back to us from the darkness outside, a grotesque imitation of the plea I just made into the radio. Sophia looks at me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and disbelief. "We can't stay here," she says, her voice barely above a whisper, as if she's afraid the creature might hear her even from this distance. I pause, considering our options, which seem to be dwindling by the minute. "We have no other choice," I finally say. It's pitch black outside, and we're not familiar with these woods. The idea of venturing back into that dark, unknown terrain, especially with that creature lurking, is unthinkable. We've barricaded the door and we have some supplies. Our best option is to wait here until morning. The night stretches on, each minute feeling like an hour. We've arranged ourselves in a circle, huddled together. Sophia and I take turns keeping watch while the others try to rest. Even during my turn to sleep, I find it hard to relax, my senses on high alert for any sound that might indicate the creature is approaching. During Sophia's watch, she nudges me awake. "Do you hear that?" she whispers. I strain my ears and catch the faintest rustling outside the cabin, a soft scraping sound. We all hold our breath, but after a few tense moments, the sound fades away. Leo and Maya are bundled up in the blankets we found, eyes wide open and staring at the ceiling. Despite the exhaustion that's setting in, sleep is a distant dream for them too. It's going to be okay, I tell them, but the words feel empty, even as I say them. The uncertainty of our situation hangs heavy in the air. As dawn begins to break, the sky outside turns from black to a muted gray, and then finally to the soft, pale light of morning. Relief washes over me. We've made it through the night and the creature didn't attempt to get in. We're tired and scared, but we're alive. We need to make a plan, Sophia says, unfolding the map once more. Once it's full daylight, we should head back to the car. We can't stay here. I nod in agreement. We'll need to be quick. Grab only what's necessary. We open the cabin door cautiously, half expecting the creature to pounce on us the moment we step outside. But the area around the cabin is empty. The early morning light filtering through the trees gives the forest a peaceful appearance, sharply contrasting the fear that lingers in our hearts. I take the lead, tire iron still in hand, and we start making our way back to the car. The path is as we remember it, marked by the occasional broken branch or flattened patch of grass where we had walked the previous night. I keep scanning the surroundings, alert for any sign of movement. Stay close, keep your eyes open, I remind everyone, although it's hardly necessary. We're all on edge, waiting for that rustling in the bush or that eerie call that signals the creature's presence. About halfway to the car, Sophia freezes and grabs my arm. Look, she says, pointing toward a clearing. There in the middle are our footprints from last night, unmistakably circled by another set of tracks, those of the creature. It's a chilling sight, proof that it was stalking us, possibly planning its next move, playing a terrifying game. We don't waste time pondering what might have been. Instead, we quicken our pace, each of us quietly praying that we'll reach the car without incident. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, we arrive at the car. It's just as we left it, the hood up and the doors locked. The first thing I do is try to start the engine again, still holding on to the faint hope that it was a temporary issue, and that we'll hear the comforting sound of the engine roaring to life. But after several attempts, it's clear that's not going to happen. The car is dead and we're stranded. "Can't you fix it, Dad?" Leo asks, a hint of desperation in his voice. I shake my head, frustrated and tired. "I've tried everything I know. We don't have the tools or the parts to fix it here." Sophia takes out the map again. "So what's our next move? We're sitting ducks if we stay here, but we can't keep running aimlessly in the forest either." I look at the map, studying the web of lines and landmarks. There's a main road about 2 miles to the east of here. It's a long walk, especially through unfamiliar terrain, but it's better than staying here. We start gathering what supplies we can carry: bottled water, canned food, and the first aid kit. As we prepare to set out, I can't shake the feeling that we're still being watched. The creature has been eerily absent since we left the cabin, but the thought that it might reappear at any moment keeps us all vigilant. "Ready?" I ask, meeting each pair of eyes. "Ready," they reply in unison, their voices small but resolute. With one last glance at the car and the woods that house the creature, still lurking somewhere in the shadows, we begin our trek toward the main road, uncertain of what awaits us but united in our determination to survive. It's going to be a long walk, but staying is not an option. As we move through the dense forest, my senses are on high alert. My eyes scan the terrain, jumping from shadow to shadow. Then I see them 2 spots of light reflecting in the distance, a dull, dead yellow. Those eyes, alien yet eerily familiar, confirm that the creature is still there, following us but not closing the gap. Sophia walks beside me, gripping a sturdy branch as a makeshift weapon. She feels it too, the palpable sense that we are not alone. She is tense, eyes darting around, mirroring my own vigilance. The creature is clever, choosing to lurk just beyond our immediate view, making its presence known without directly confronting us. The kids are doing their best to be brave, but their faces are pale and their eyes are wide with fear. They too are aware that the creature remains in pursuit, maintaining its distance. They look to Sophia and me for assurance, but what comfort can we offer? Every so often, there's a rustle in the trees, a shaking branch, a moving shadow that sends a chill down my spine. The creature is adept at reminding us of its presence. It wants us to know it's there, close yet not close enough for us to do anything about it. A sick power play that has us at a disadvantage. Even the forest seems to acknowledge the creature's stalking tactics. Birds that were chirping earlier are now silent. The wind that was a mild relief has died down, as if even nature itself is holding its breath. Everything is eerily calm, except for our footsteps and the distant, occasional rustling that reminds us the creature is still out there, watching. "We need to keep moving," Sophia says, breaking the silence. Her voice is firm, but tinged with an urgency that she doesn't need to articulate. "We all know why we have to continue. Standing still is not an option when you're prey." As we move forward, I feel a sense of dread settling in. The creature is toying with us. It's a predator playing a psychological game, one that it's winning. It's eroding our sense of security bit by bit, never allowing us to forget that it's there, always in the background, a silent, pervasive threat. The fear is no longer just about the creature's physical threat. It's the emotional toll that its stalking is taking on each of us, the way it seems to drain our resolve after hiking for what feels like hours. Leo points out something in the distance. "Look, an old fire tower," he says, his voice raspy. "That could be our chance to call for help," Sophia says, her eyes lighting up for the first time in a long while. "Let's go." "Good find, Leo," I say, feeling a small sense of relief, a fragile spark of hope. Sophia is already heading toward it, her steps more energized, and I follow suit. The tower looms above us, a possible sanctuary in this maze of peril. As we get closer to the tower, I'm intensely aware of our surroundings. Every fiber of my being expects the creature to leap at us, especially now that we might have a way to escape this nightmare. But strangely, all remains quiet. No rustle in the trees, no eyes reflecting in the shadows. I grip the tire iron tighter as we start to climb the wooden steps, each step creaking under our weight, protesting the passage of time. The door to the tower looks old and worn, but is thankfully unlocked. With a wary glance back at the dense forest behind us, I push the door open. It creaks loudly, a mournful sound. For a moment, I worry that the sound will attract the creature, but there's no turning back now. We step inside and shut the door behind us, locking it as best we can. The interior of the tower is sparse but functional. Dusty windows offer a panoramic view of the forest below. A table and chair are set up near the windows, and most importantly, a radio is on the table. "Look," Sophia says, pointing at the radio, a beacon of possibility. "Maybe we can finally get some help." I rush over to the radio and start fiddling with it. "Let's see if this thing works," I mutter, adjusting the knobs and hitting the power button. Static fills the air, loud and grating, but it's a hopeful sound. I switch to the emergency frequency and grab the microphone. "This is an emergency. We need help," I say, my voice tinged with both hope and desperation. As I release the microphone button, waiting for a response, that's when we hear it. The creature's call pierces the air, mimicking my voice from moments before. "This is an emergency. We need help," it says in a twisted, nightmarish version of my own voice, drawn out, hollow, as if speaking through a void. A chill goes down my spine. It's close, maybe even right below the tower. Just as I'm starting to think nobody will answer, a voice breaks through the static, a distant, crackling lifeline. "This is Ranger Station Echo. Who is this?" "We're a family lost in the mountains," I respond, relieved to hear another human voice. "We're being stalked by some creature. We need urgent help." The voice from the station takes a serious tone. "Understood. We can send a rescue team, but they won't be able to reach your location until morning. Can you hold out until then?" Before I can respond, we hear it, the unmistakable sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps on the wooden steps outside the tower. My heart drops. The creature is climbing the stairs, coming for us. It's no longer keeping its distance. It's closing in before any of us can react further. A loud crash reverberates through the tower. The creature has reached the door and is ramming against it, as if trying to break it down. Panic sets in, and my eyes dart around the room and spot a flare gun in an open cabinet. We have no choice, we have to hold out, I say quickly, grabbing the flare gun. I switched the radio off and set it down on the table, then turned to my family. Hold on, everyone, I declare as I aim the flare gun at the door. The creature bursts in, the weakened wood splintering inward. It's even larger up close, its yellow eyes unnervingly intelligent. It makes a beeline toward us, a predator's unwavering focus. Its eyes meet mine, and what I see chills me to the core. A kind of calculating intelligence that seems almost human, but also a deep, insatiable emptiness, a hunger for something intangible. My finger squeezes the trigger, releasing the flare. A trail of light and smoke shoots out, streaking across the room and creating a red, fiery glow that illuminates the creature's unsettling features. It lets out an ear-piercing scream, a sound not of surprise or pain, but of profound aversion, as if the light itself was anathema to its very being, before rapidly retreating back down the stairs. I return to the radio, my hand still shaking but a newfound determination steadying my voice. Heading out now, I informed the ranger, pressing the transmit button. We'll be waiting. We'll be there, the voice assures me. Then the line goes dead, leaving us alone in our high-altitude prison. The room is filled with a stifling silence, the tension almost unbearable, like a thick fog that settled over us. We're safe for the time being, but outside, the darkness continues to fall, and with it, the unknown dangers that come with the night. We have to wait until morning for rescue, holed up in this wooden tower. The creature is still out there, stalking the dark, possibly planning its next move. It's an unnerving thought, and it makes the walls of the fire tower feel like they're closing in on us, understanding that we have no other choice. We settle in for what promises to be a long, harrowing night. We distribute the blankets that we found in the tower's supply cabinet, wrapping them tightly around ourselves for both warmth and a small sense of security. As the hours drag on, we all sit in the cramped space of the fire tower. The walls are made of aged wood that groans with the wind. The room is illuminated only by a single lantern in a corner, its light casting tall, flickering shadows on the walls, making the atmosphere even more unsettling. To pass the time and keep alert, we decide that each of us will take shifts to watch for any signs of the creature. Who wants to go first? My voice comes out softer than I intend, revealing my exhaustion. I'll do it, Sophia offers without hesitation. She moves towards the window, placing a rickety chair in front of it. In her hand is a tire iron, which she holds firmly, her eyes watching the tree line and the empty space below, looking for any movement. The rest of us try to make ourselves comfortable, which is easier said than done. We pull the blankets tightly around us, each lost in our own thoughts. The room is chilly, and the blankets offer little warmth. Still, they provide a sense of security, however false it may be. Leo and Maya are the first to succumb to sleep, their eyes closing despite the threat outside. A couple of hours into the night, I feel a gentle nudge on my arm. I open my eyes to see Sophia standing next to me. "Your turn," she whispers. I nod, pushing aside the blanket to take her place at our makeshift watch post. As I sit down on the chair positioned near the window, my eyes meet the black expanse outside. The darkness is almost absolute, and my eyes strain to discern any shape or movement. Still, it's not completely quiet. I hear the occasional rustling of leaves or branches snapping. There's even the brief flicker of reflected light far in the distance, a dull yellow gleam that appears and disappears. It's a subtle reminder that we're not alone. The creature is still out there, its presence like a weight, lurking in the shadows and watching our every move. Leo stirs from his spot on the floor and makes his way toward me. He sits down on an adjacent chair, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hands. "What do you think it wants?" he asks, his voice tinged with a palpable mix of curiosity and fear. I look at him and then back out into the darkness before answering. "I wish I knew." My voice is low, almost drowned out by the wind howling outside. "Maybe it's territorial, defending its space from intruders like us. Maybe it's curious, wondering what these strange beings are doing in its home. Or maybe it's just malicious, enjoying the fear it's instilling in us, feeding on it. We both fall silent, each lost in our own thoughts, trying not to imagine what this creature might be capable of. The room is tense, filled with an air of uncertainty. We sit together, Leo and I, facing the dark abyss outside the window, listening for any sign of the creature. Our ears are attuned to the subtlest of sounds, be it the creak of the wood under our weight or the far-off hooting of an owl. Finally, after hours that stretch on like an unending road, the first hints of dawn start to illuminate the horizon. The sky transforms from a pitch black to a lighter shade of gray. The night has been a marathon of nerves and terror, but now a small yet significant sense of relief begins to seep into the room. It's as if the rising sun brings with it not just light, but a sliver of hope that we might make it out of this ordeal. That sliver of hope enlarges into a full beam when our ears catch a sound that cuts through the morning air, a mechanical thumping that gradually grows louder. It's the unmistakable sound of helicopter blades rotating at high speed. It's here, the rescue helicopter is here, Maya shouts, her voice cracking with relief. She points a trembling finger toward the tower window where we can now see the approaching helicopter. We all rush to the window to look for the helicopter in the sky, our faces pressed against the glass, our eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. It's real. It's not a figment of our imaginations. The helicopter is getting closer, and we can now make out its details. It's a large aircraft designed for rescue operations, with visible markings that identify it as part of the Ranger service. As the helicopter lowers itself toward a clearing in the distance, relief washes over us like a cleansing tide. It's so close, just a few hundred meters from the fire tower. I can see the pilot in the cockpit and the rescue team preparing to disembark as soon as the aircraft lands. The spinning blades send ripples through the tall grass of the clearing, flattening it in a circular pattern beneath the machine. For the first time in what feels like forever, we allow ourselves to smile, to exhale, to release the pent-up anxiety that has kept us on edge. The looming threat of the creature, although not gone, seems less imminent with the arrival of help. We exchange glances, each of us seeing the same emotion mirrored in the other's faces. A sense of overwhelming relief mixed with disbelief that rescue is actually happening. We gather our sparse belongings, putting on jackets and shouldering small bags. Each of us knows that leaving the tower means stepping back into the territory of the unknown creature, but the sight of the rescue team on the ground gives us the courage to face that risk. We scramble aboard the helicopter. Every buckle clicked and strap tightened feels like a small victory, a step away from the nightmare we've survived. The seats are cushioned, a comfort we hadn't realized we missed until now. The helicopter's interior is filled with the deafening sound of rotating blades. The moment the helicopter lifts off the ground, a collective sigh of relief escapes our lips. We're airborne, ascending higher and higher, putting distance between us and the creature that has stalked us. I look out the window and see the trees and rocks of the mountain range growing smaller as we rise. I'm flooded with questions that have no answers. How many other people have crossed paths with this creature? How long has it been lurking in these isolated mountains? One question lingers more than the rest. What kind of creature is capable of instilling such dread, of mimicking human voices with such chilling accuracy, as if it's absorbing not just the sound but the very essence of human despair? As we continue to ascend, I keep my eyes on the landscape below. For a moment, I spot a small, dark shape moving between the trees. Is it the creature? It's hard to tell from this altitude, but eventually the shape becomes indistinguishable from the rest of the forest. The creature is now a minuscule speck in the grand scheme of the wilderness, and then it vanishes altogether. Or so it seems. But as the helicopter banks, giving me one last look at the receding forest, I notice something subtle, something chillingly final. Where the creature's eyes had glowed, there's now just a deeper, emptier shadow, a void that seems to ripple faintly in the morning light. And then, a phantom echo whispers in the back of my mind, my own voice, twisted and hollow. We need help. It wasn't just mimicking our voices, it was taking them. And perhaps it took something else too. What chilling detail from these stories stuck with you the most? Share your thoughts below and follow for more tales that twist the familiar into the terrifying.